Welcome back to my bookshelf. Hi, I'm Coley. This is Sweet Peaches Nutrition, and today let's talk about intuitive eating. I mentioned intuitive eating in my food story video that I posted last week, and how it was an interesting concept to me that really kind of changed the way I thought about eating and defining how I eat. So I wanted to break down a little bit more about what is intuitive eating if you've never heard about it before, and share with you some of my favorite intuitive eating, anti-diet books that I've read, so that if you're curious and want to learn more, you can check out some of these books. So often intuitive eating is kind of broken down to its most basic form of you don't let outside rules dictate how you eat, and you eat what you want when you want. When you're hungry, you eat. And when you feel full, you stop. You don't let 3 meals a day and 2 snacks dictate how you eat. You eat at the times when you're hungry. And you don't feel that you have to clean your plate. You just stop eating when you're full. And of course there's a lot of nuances to that, including for me, if I know I'm going to work for 4 hours, that I have to eat before I leave. Even if I'm not super hungry right in that moment, I know that I will be before the next time I get a chance to eat. So I have to preemptively take care of my hunger and take care of myself. Or obviously, if you have a scheduled lunch break or lunchtime, you have to eat during that time. And of course, then your body begins to adjust to your schedule and you're become hungry when it's time to eat. But that's kind of the most basic form. I really like this definition that is on Be Nourished's website, who's a really awesome body positive group that I'll link below if you're curious. But they say, an intuitive eater is defined as a person who makes food choices without experiencing guilt or an ethical dilemma, honors hunger, respects fullness, and enjoys the pleasure of eating. And so, with that, let's get into some of my favorite intuitive eating books. So first up is the 2 women who wrote the book on intuitive eating. Evelyn Tribble and Elise Reich wrote Intuitive Eating. They're the founders of intuitive eating, and they wrote this book that has been adjusted over time. And the main portion of this book, it talks about the 10 principles of intuitive eating, and then they dive into them. So the 10 principles are: reject the diet mentality, honor your hunger, make peace with food, challenge the food police, feel your fullness, discover the satisfaction factor, cope with your emotions without using food, respect your body, exercise, feel the difference, and honor your health with gentle nutrition. And so they go into the different principles in more depth and talk about things like the hunger fullness scale and enjoying your food, and maybe that you begin to stop eating when food isn't enjoyable anymore, and that's another cue that you're not as hungry anymore. And this book is a good jumping off point because it's where all of these ideas kind of began. Now, I will admit, when I first read this in school, I thought it was some hippie bullshit. I thought it was really weird, and I was not interested. In fact, I had the newer edition, and I sold it after the class was finished, and I ended up rebuying it when I came around. And I think that partially has to do with the class structure where I learned about it and the person who's teaching it. But it was a little too hippy-dippy for me originally, and so I will get to, if you're feeling that way too, I will get to another book that might resonate more with you. Another book that kind of goes along with this whole realm, in my opinion, is Health at Every Size by Linda Bacon. And this is another book that's really interesting. This one is more research and scientific based than self-helpy kind of, but it's really interesting, and basically talking about the fact that you can't look at someone and tell what their health is by the size of their body. and that people in larger bodies can be healthy and people in smaller bodies can be sick, and that's not the only defining factor of health, and that people should be treated the same ways. So if someone in a smaller body comes in with stomach pains and someone with a larger body comes in with stomach pains, they should be treated the same way, and the differential diagnosis should be the same. The larger person shouldn't be told, oh, you need to lose weight right off the bat, and that is the solution to things, which sadly is how things can be in our healthcare system, and that is why health at every size is so important. And I think the most interesting thing to come from this book is the idea, and it's brought up actually again in many of these books, but is the idea of weight cycling or yo-yo dieting, and that actually continuing to change your weight is actually more unhealthy than just maintaining a weight, because it puts a lot of stress on your body and puts a lot of stress like on your cardiovascular system to lose a bunch of weight really quick and then gain weight and then lose weight and then gain weight. And often people tend to, it's an upward trend. People tend to end up at a higher weight, and that process is actually more harmful, which is pretty interesting because, often people are told they need to lose weight to be healthier, and if they actually just kind of maintained their slightly larger size, they would be much healthier. So if that is something that piques your interest, I highly recommend Health at Every Size. Next is this beautiful book, Body Kindness. So I borrowed this one from the library and read it on my phone, and then I knew that I had to have it, even though I'm trying to buy less books. This actually was the last thing I got from Powell's before I moved. This one is a lot more like self-helpy, look inward, like mentally focused, which is good for some people, but also, might rub some people the wrong way and they wouldn't be interested. But it's just so pretty. Like, the illustrations and the graphs are just so pretty. It's a pretty book to read, which I love. And again, an anti-diet book, kind of in the realm of intuitive eating, to stop dieting, to just kind of be content with where you are. Like I said, this one definitely is a little bit more like gives you prompts to like focus on yourself, and so if that's something that you're into, I highly recommend this one. Otherwise, it's just really pretty if you want to borrow it from your library and check out it. Okay, so you're hanging in there, but you've been shaking your head the whole time, like, no, this is not for me. You are me when I first heard about intuitive eating. I wish this book had existed, because this is like the no-nonsense approach you need. The fuck it diet. I love this book because I really do think that there are different personalities out there, and if you are not the kind of hippy-dippy, go-with-the-flow person, then this is the book you should read. Just really like loud and blunt and forward, kind of. It is the exact opposite of this book, right? Like, I totally got on board with this. Of course, if you do not like cursing, this is not the book for you. But, I think that it's peppered in very well to appeal to a different type of audience. The science in here is sound, and she basically is talking about all the same, like, things. But, like, so this is an activity that's in here that says, sit down and write a list of all the negative limiting beliefs about food and weight you can think of. Find those little fuckers. Like, this definitely appeals to a different audience, and I love this book. Okay, and then this is the newest book that I've got, and the last one that I finished reading, called Anti-Diet by Christy Harrison, and this is another good one. I think that this one kind of falls somewhere in between the, like, forwardness of this book and the, like, hippie go-with-your-flow feelings realm. This one is definitely more, like, science-based, gives you lots of facts, talks about different studies about weight bias and how diets can be damaging. So if you're not into, like, the self-help realm, but you don't want to rock around reading a book that says fuck on the cover, I'd recommend this one. It goes over the same principles of intuitive eating, and I really like the way that this book was written, very, not gendered. She talks about like people who present as female or people who were assigned female at birth when talking about the way that typically females in our society are treated when it comes to diet and weight. But I really appreciate that because, you know, if society sees you as female, even if you identify as non-binary or something else outside of the gender binary, like, you still feel these struggles and you still have these expectations put on you by society. So I really liked the way that this was worded, that it didn't just say like women always experience this, because it's a lot more than just women. I also just happened to open up to this page and I remembered, you know, she talks about like that this isn't always accessible to everyone. Obviously, if you're facing like food insecurity, you can't just eat what you want when you want. It's a privilege to be able to eat intuitively. And so I really like the way that she talks about how diets are damaging to everyone, but that if you know, if you're like experiencing food insecurity, obviously you can't always eat intuitively. You have to eat what you have access to when you have access to it. So I really like the way that she approached it in this book, and I would definitely recommend this one as well, if that piques your interest. And one more honorable mention will go to a book that I don't have because I got from the library, called Diet Cults. And I love the message that that book puts out too, about how so many people find identity in diets, and it's like their tribe, their group of people, and the way that you can get sucked into diets because that's like the cool thing to do, or that's what your friends are doing, or that is the group you want to be with, and how a lot of these fad diets have a bit of a cult mentality. So then he does go on to kind of give his own way of eating, which, whatever, but I really like the information he shares about how you can easily get sucked up into a diet. So thanks for letting me indulge in my bookwormness and share these books with you guys. I will link all of these books below so you can check them out if you're interested. And if your libraries are still closed, there's an awesome app called Libby that a lot of libraries are associated with, where you can borrow ebooks and audiobooks straight to your phone. So that's another great way to be able to access these titles if you're interested. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!